This is Boomer Life on CL 650.
Here I am, stuck in the middle with you. Yes, I'm stuck in the middle with you.
And welcome back to Boomer Life on CL 650. We're talking about Opal by Element Lifestyle Retirement at the corner of King Ed and Canby. Candy Ho is the constant, always in studio. Your dad is going to come back, is that true?
Yes, yeah.
The real Don Ho?
The real tiny bubbles.
And does he get that all the time?
Absolutely. He used to sing with the ladies and dance with the ladies as Don Ho.
And we have Veronica Duck-Concesso here, and we're talking about Opal by Element. Now, sort of explain kind of what your job is. You meet the families and make them comfortable about making this move. Is that kind of how it works?
I've actually have had several roles, down to nursing coordinator, working in the licensed care or in the licensed care, resident services, marketing, sales.
You've done it all.
Yes, managing the kitchen, staffing, payroll. I've kind of done it all.
So with Opal, you're meeting with people
Yes.
to see if this is a fit for them, right?
Right.
So
right.
when you go and there's no family, like you go and meet somebody and there's no family there to support them, that may be the most shocking time when there's nobody there to help them, right?
Yes, and usually it starts off with a phone call. Sometimes they call in and they hang up and then they call again, and it's a good thing we have call display. But it's the human approach, right? They do call in and they have lots and lots of questions, and sometimes I find there's a fear of understanding what that retirement living may look like, and I do call back, and if they don't drive, or they might not be comfortable taking a bus, I offer to go and see them. Mm-hmm. And so sitting down on the kitchen counter, having a cup of tea, I find that that's something that they really enjoy doing, is just getting to know them. I love to hear their stories, down to finding wood in the forest and into their log cabin and cooking shepherd's pie, their version of shepherd's pie, things like that. And they said, well, the shepherd's pie these days are not the same. So they're telling me their life story, war, that really touches me. And sometimes I walk away being so humble. And you don't need all this technology. It's just human approach and just chatting. And then they talk. And it could be the following day where they go back again and they talk about why they really want to make this move. And they're scared because they don't have anybody to help them make these decisions. They don't, and if they have a friend, they don't want to burden them. Right? So I become something close to family. And I get phone calls a lot. Even those that have cell phones, they're texting me. So even if maybe a neighbor that has a concern. So I just think that trying to be helpful in that sense and just being human.
Does having a family involved in the decision making make it easier or harder? I'm guessing it depends on every family. If they're on their own, that could be a challenge. They're scared, right?
Yes.
And then when you have family involved, then there's too many cooks in the kitchen. So you get a bit of both, right?
There's too many hands in the pot, obviously, and sometimes that poses a great challenge because if for those that have power of attorneys, one might be in charge of financial and the other one might be in charge of medical. Not every sibling is in agreement for mom to make the move. They're in the house. There's no extra cost. So essentially, they might get some government funding to help with how many hours of care per week one is entitled to. But that doesn't solve the issue. The real issue is your resident is isolated in their home with four walls. And as I mentioned earlier, and there's so many of our seniors living at risk right now.
I'd like to add to that, when government sends care and they send, say, 2 hours a week, actually that's on the high side already.
Yes.
Think about the number of hours in a week. It's 168. So what of the next other 166? More than that, when they come, they are on a little sheet that defines what their duties are in those 2 hours, whatever. Yes. And if they come and something else happens that day, which will be pretty often, stuff comes up all the time and they can't veer away from that sheet of duties. some people get 20 minutes of care, 2 or 3 times a week or something. If they show up at the door and the family is in a little acute emergency situation where they're just trying to wrap up giving that bit of emergency care, they finally get to the door, they've already lost 15 minutes. So the people come in for 5 minutes and go because they have to get to their next appointment.
Wow.
That's what home care is. Then didn't you do a bit of a home care business yourself?
I did, but then my approach was the time that you go into someone's home is the time that you start. It's not about the clock. It's about the time and the essence of the time that you spent with the resident, whether or not it's medication. Sometimes it's just companionship. But really sit down and, as you're doing, let's say, laundry for the resident, invite them, engage them, talk about things while you're folding laundry, not just be silent and do the laundry and then you're out of there.
Yeah.
That's not how we deal with people.
Yeah.
Not at all.
So the example of the home care I was talking about was the government approach. And then there are other private providers, and they may be probably more flexible, but still, again, like Veronica said, it's still at home with, not a community around you with people that are active and happy with programs to participate in.
Yeah. Not so robotic, right? Everything's like on a schedule, and
you're not sitting at home trying to arrange things with people and making phone calls. Can you see me? And it's like 2 months later, right?
Yeah, it's like trying to get into a specialist.
Then you start finding all these friends.
By the time you get to the
I've
specialist, you feel better.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
So one thing you touched on the laundry, and this was something that came up, I think, when the last time you were both in, is that I didn't realize in most retirement situations, there's no laundry in your suite. But at Opal, you do that. That seems so logical to me. And why wouldn't it be in other places? Do you know why they don't
shared
do it?
laundry on each floor for
even
rentals?
Aside from retirement communities, even condo buildings. Some of them have just shared laundry.
Yeah, the older buildings,
But now I think it's important because it's our things. And
you don't want people,
I know my mom for sure, just an example, the hygiene hurdle. Right?
That's right. And keeping it on a schedule. I had a resident he's so funny. He says to me, I'll give you a tip to all the rest of the residents. If you shared laundry, right? So there was like a laundry room on every single floor. Now, in order to forget that your laundry might be done, you just tie 2 rubber bands. Tie a rubber band around your 2 fingers, and then it'll always constantly remind you that you have to get your laundry because it's almost done. But can you imagine having
I should
to remember
do that at home because I put a load of wash on and then I forget.
Can you
I'm going to
imagine?
do the elastic.
So having that laundry, like in-suite laundry, is so important
On your
to
schedule.
a lot of people. I'm finding that more and more, actually.
That was probably one of the critical factors for my mom when we did tours. So before we conceived of Opal, she was looking, because I've mentioned that she has some challenges, and we were looking around, and the laundry was a big hurdle for her. One of the number one hurdles. Yeah.
And I think a lot of people listening to this wouldn't even think of that until you've moved in and you're like, where do I do my laundry? Oh, down the hall. Oh.
Yeah. And where do you put it when you're taking the laundry down? What if someone has some, maybe a knee, some arthritis in the knee? It's going to hard to pick up the basket with all these clothes, take it down, right? And then back again. Right? So it's somewhat of a hurdle, right?
So we have laundry in every suite, and then they have the option of getting that done by our people. For rentals, actually, we have 4 hours of domestic upkeep that is flexible. You choose what you want to get done in your home every week, 4 hours of flexible domestic upkeep.
And you can get a lot of laundry done in 4 hours.
Yeah, and it's not, it's laundry, tidying, cleaning, but any other random stuff in the house, like even folding your clothes or tidying your closet, cleaning up your fridge, wiping down the windows, things that are out of reach, like above the fridge, whatever it is that
and you'll be
is
surprised,
just tiring to do.
You'll be surprised how much that actually means to a resident.
Well, 4 hours a week, I mean, it's the thing is that you don't need the top of the fridge cleaned every week. So the next week, it could be something totally different, right?
Exactly.
So, it's cumulative.
Yes, and then it's not even so much the hours of time, but it's also the human connection, the social connection. I used to also be in charge of the housekeeping department, and one resident said to me, I enjoyed the conversation so much with the housekeeper. I connected with her so much. She goes, I didn't even care what she did in my apartment. So I think those kind of things just really tell you that people just want to be people. Talk to me. Don't text me, talk to me, right? Especially with our seniors. But then again, the seniors are actually very techie these days, very techie. I had actually a lady, I'm going to share this really funny story with you. She was actually doing a rest or convalescent or short stay at this particular community. And she's 97. So the family was going to Arizona on a trip. And the senior said to me, Veronica, is there Wi-Fi? And I said, yes. And she goes, where would be the strongest signal? And I said, well, just out in the lobby area. She goes, okay. And that's all I asked. So the next day, I saw her with a MacBook Air, headset, her iPhone, and I said, oh, you're all hooked up. And she goes, yes, I'm Skyping my daughter in England. Isn't that fabulous?
Yeah.
I love it.
Like she did it all on her own and she had no problem. She was so much more techier than I was.
All right. When we come back, I want to hear about the get down and boogie party nights you guys have, the Vegas nights.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And all that kind of stuff. We're going to find out more about Opal by Element next on CL 650.
Celebrating the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life on CL 650.